Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen we're making the perfect birthday cake for my new book. So let's get started. First off, set your oven to 350, grab 2 round 8-inch cake pans, butter, and line them with parchment paper. Now in a large bowl, we're gonna measure all of our dry ingredients, starting with 2 2/3 cups of all-purpose flour, that's 320 grams. Using a scale will give you the best results, as you'll have the perfect amount of flour for a moist, melt-in-your-mouth cake. If you're scooping the flour up, you're gonna add too much and your cake will be dry and bready. So if you need to use measuring cups, fluff the flour up in your canister, sprinkle it into your cup, and level it off. That way you'll have roughly the correct amount. To puff things up, I'm adding 2 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder. This is a recipe I'm so excited to share with you. It's one of my favorites for my new book, Preppy Kitchen Super Easy. It's over 100 really quick and easy recipes. You can make this cake with so many different flavors, so I'm gonna walk you through that later on in the video. For some contrast, I'm adding 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Grab a whisk and a copy of Preppy Kitchen Super Easy, and now we're gonna give this a really nice mix. Stir to distribute all those dry ingredients, especially the baking powder. By the way, if you like delicious things, make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's 2 new recipes every single week, lots of shorts, and always something tasty along the way. And now we're gonna set this aside and grab our stand mixer or hand mixer with a large bowl. Into the bowl of my mixer, fitted with a whisk attachment, I'm adding 3/4 cup of softened butter. This, by the way, is nice and soft. I can press down and leave an indent, it'll bend. It's beautiful. If your butter's hard, just microwave it, 50% power for maybe 10 seconds. And there we go. We're gonna beat this until smooth. Depending on how soft your butter is, it'll be either 5 seconds to maybe 30 seconds or a minute. There we go, nice and smooth. To sweeten and soften this cake, we're gonna add 1 2/3 cups of granulated sugar. That's 333 grams. And 2/3 cups. We're gonna mix this on high for about 2 minutes, making sure to scrape the bowl down at least once. You want this to really fluff up and incorporate nicely. Okay. As promised, scrape that down. Most of it is fluffy and cloud-like, but there is a little bit of this pressed butter at the bottom of my bowl. Back to mixing, and while that fluffs up, I'm gonna crack 3 eggs into a bowl so I can make sure there's no shells. Now we're gonna reduce speed to medium and add our eggs in 1 at a time. After each egg, scrape the bowl down. So this cake recipe is 1, basically foolproof, and 2, makes a light, fluffy, melt in your mouth cake. You can add so many different things to it. So in the book, I give you flavor variations, options for the pans to cook it in, and that way you can have a stacked layer cake, you could have a sheet cake, you could have a loaf of quick bread, or you could have muffins. The list goes on. Scrape that bowl down. I really wanted the book to be something you could go back to over and over again, not just for your favorite recipes, but to try the recipes with different sauces, flavors, and shapes and sizes too. All right, egg number 2. With a scrape down. This texture looks so nice, by the way. Look at that, like a sunny cloud. All right, and time for our last egg. We're adding the eggs in 1 at a time just to give things a chance to mix. If you dumped them all in together, whenever you add in a lot of liquid to a butter mixture, it's gonna form this like weird cottage cheesy situation, which can work out and it's not a huge deal, but for best results, and we all want the best cake, you're gonna have things done gradually so it mixes for a smooth, beautiful, cohesive mixture. This looks lovely. Now it's time for 1 tablespoon of vanilla, which will give you all the flavor. Once you add your vanilla in, increase the speed to high and mix for 1 minute. See a couple lumps of butter just at the top? So I'm scraping those down. All right, increase to high. I'm gonna show you what this looks like right now because it's so pretty, but first, let's ditch the whisk. Pop a paddle attachment on, but first take Oh, look at this. It is whipped to perfection, full of air bubbles in there. And it's nice and smooth too. Grab your paddle attachment, pop that on, and measure out 1 cup or 240 mils of buttermilk. This will give you a little bit of tang, which is nice, so it's not just all sweet. And buttermilk is a weak acid, and whenever you add an acid in the correct amount into a cake, it gives you a very tender crumb. It's gonna melt in your mouth. Add about 1/3 of your flour mixture into the mixer. Now we're gonna mix this on low until it's just combined. Just like that. I still see some flour around. It's not a big deal. It's mostly mixed. Add in half the buttermilk. Mix that up. Another 1/3 of the flour mixture. Mix again, and you can see I'm turning the mixer off in between each step. I don't want to overmix, that would not be lovely. Add the remaining buttermilk. Mix on low once more. I'm gonna scrape the bowl down, just because there's like flour and buttermilk all over the place, and then finish off with the remaining flour. The last bit of flour goes in. Mix it until it's almost combined. I'm making this as a rainbow sprinkle cake, so I'm adding 1/3 of a cup of sprinkles in. You could add 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. You could add toffee chips, nuts, anything like this, a dry mix in. Add about 1/3 to 1/2 cup. My batter is almost done, and I'm gonna finish it off by hand. I always like to do that so I can scrape the bowl down, have things perfectly mixed, and you just have better control when you do it with your spatula. Add those sprinkles in. Fold them in while you scrape the bowl down. You'll see your batter is perfectly mixed and beautiful with rainbow sprinkles throughout. Once our batter is nicely mixed, we're gonna distribute it evenly into our 2 prepared 8-inch baking pans. I can't help myself, I'm giving it a quick test. Oh my gosh, so close, 20 grams off. Smooth the batter out with a spatula just so it has a really great start in the oven. I will be popping on some cake strips. These are just damp fabric strips that get tightened around the edge of your pan, and all they do is give you a really flat, even bake and prevent some of that like over caramelization or burning on the edges of your cake. I like using these because your cake doesn't have a mound that you have to trim. It'll just be perfectly flat with no need for waste. My cake layers are ready to go into the oven, 350 for 30 to 35 minutes, or until the centers are springy to the touch and a skewer inserted in the middle comes out clean. In the meantime, we're gonna make our frosting. My cake layers are out of the oven and they look so good. But this cake would not be complete without a beautiful, easy vanilla frosting. So grab 1 1/4 cups or 284 grams of room temperature unsalted butter. You can see it's super beautiful and soft, just like that. Pop it in. And for this cake, I'm making an American buttercream. It is the quickest and the easiest. Preppy Kitchen, super easy. But you can mix and match frostings from the book or just use anyone you love. For a bit of contrast, I'm adding 1/4 teaspoon of salt. If you're using salted butter to make this, make sure you do not add any salt. You don't need that. Plop that on, and we're gonna mix on medium-high for about 5 minutes until this butter is super white and really creamy and fluffy. It's gonna pump a ton of air into this and really make the frosting so much better. 5 minutes. Scrape that bowl down halfway through. The top looked fluffy, white, and amazing, but the side was still yellow and the same. So scrape it down and keep mixing. 5 minutes later, and I have to show you the difference in texture. This looks like meringue. It is so blindingly white, especially when you compare it to the butter before. Look at that. Do you see the difference? So in this bowl, I have about 5 tablespoons of cream, maybe a little bit more, and I'm gonna add 5 cups of powdered sugar in. So first cup goes in. Reduce your speed to low now, and we're gonna add the sugar in a cup at a time, alternating in with a dash of cream. Give the sugar time to incorporate. This does not have to go at high speed. We already did that with the butter. A little bit more cream. And I'm gonna scrape the bowl down maybe 2 or 3 times. This is cup number 4. A little more cream. And because this is an American buttercream, you can change the proportions. Swiss and Italian are very specific, so you kind of have to do the recipe as is. With this buttercream, you can make it a little bit less sweet with less powdered sugar, a little bit more sweet. You can make it very firm or very slack, depending on how much cream you add. So make the buttercream that you want to make. Cup number 5. And a little bit more cream. Now we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla for a lovely flavor. If everything's stuck in the middle of your whisk, just lift it slightly, increase to high. That'll shake it all off. And go back to mixing on low. Scrape the bowl down one last time, and then we're gonna increase to medium and mix for about a minute until it's really nice and fluffy. And at this point, you can give it a taste and see, do I want a little bit more salt, a little bit more vanilla or sugar? And make sure you're in love with the consistency. If it's a bit too firm for using on your cake, just add more cream. Up to medium for a minute. There's actually multiple dessert sections in the book. You have quick breads, bars, cakes, the list goes on, cookies too. But there's also breakfast, lunch, main courses, salads. I packed in all my favorite quick and easy recipes for you, and the link is in the description box below if you want to grab a copy. This frosting is fluffed up to perfection, so now it's time to grab our cake layers, a cake stand, some sprinkles, and get to work. Invert your cake layers onto your plate. They cooled in the pan completely. There we go. Technically, you're supposed to take the cake layers out of the pans after 10 minutes of cooling. It's fine. As long as you have those parchment rounds on the bottom, you can do anything you want. Scooping up about a cup of frosting for this top layer. Smooth that out into a nice even layer. God, I love the color of this frosting, it's so nice. Pop that onto the top. I'd like to crown this cake with some dollops, so I'm reserving about 2/3 of a cup of buttercream. Transferring that right into a piping bag. Okay. Set that aside for the end. I'm gonna do a really quick crumb coat just by coating the edge with a thin layer of buttercream. Then I'll add the rest of the buttercream and smooth it out. Everybody loves this cake stand, but if you make cakes at home, you know having a lip makes it much more difficult to smooth things out. Now I'm gonna grab the rest of the buttercream, plop that on top, and work it down the sides. Smooth that over the edge. If you notice your frosting is a bit bubbly, you can either give it a quick 30-second mix before you do this step, or just be a little bit patient and use your offset spatula, and eventually, if you just keep smoothing, it'll kind of tone down a bit. As I smooth, I'm taking excess frosting and popping it back into my bowl. That frosting can be used for my dollops or whatever other decorations you want at the end. It's important to remember that decorating a cake should be fun. Don't lose it over little imperfections. No one's gonna notice that, especially once we add our sprinkles, the dollops, and everything else. If you have a turntable at home, feel free to pop it out. I want the dollops to be really pretty, so I re-whipped my buttercream for 30 seconds, and it totally gets rid of all that bubbly nonsense. Pipe some dollops on top. Beautiful. That is such a nice consistency of frosting. This cake looks beautiful but plain, so let's add some sprinkles onto the bottom, the top, or wherever you'd like. This is a batch of homemade sprinkles, which I love. Click up here for that video, so easy. Okay, just press them onto the bottom third of the cake. Okay, that looks great. I'm finishing my cake off with a sprinkle of sprinkles right on top. I love this, and anyone with a birthday I think would be really happy to have this cake. Allow your cake to set up for a few minutes in the fridge before cutting. That frosting is so luscious and soft. Then add birthday candles or just give it a slice, and just like that, it's ready to enjoy. Perfectly sweet, that cake melts in your mouth with lovely tones of vanilla throughout. I hope you had a chance to make this delicious recipe, and if you like this video, hit that subscribe button, grab a copy of my book, Preppy Kitchen Super Easy, link in the description box below, and check out my Easy Cake playlist.